we're back.
Thanks for sticking around.
Yes, and everything is still working, it seems. Cool.
Nice.
Okay, so that was video 1, and up next is creating a beautiful UI design, I think, something like that.
Yep. Correct.
And this video is about half an hour long, so I'd say let's dive right in.
Yes.
Do it.
Do it.
Turn on the captions. It's a loud intro.
Hello and welcome to this session, Building Apps with Beautiful User Interface Design. I will be your host, Chris Hodges. When we think of interfaces, we really only think of digital examples, so that of apps and smartphones. What we don't realize is that interfaces are all around us. They're in the everyday world. So most things we interact with have one or two interfaces, such as my coffee cup, where I had my coffee this morning. To us, the user, the interface is the product. It's what we see, it's what we can touch, it's what we interact with, and relays information back to us. And we share a lot of the similarities between that and industrial product design with digital design. A lot of our users will understand how to use a digital interface by their prior experiences with products in the physical world. With that in mind, we can describe a user interface as the space where interactions between humans and machines occur. And a well-designed interface will provide to its users ease of use, efficiency, and an enjoyable experience.
You are interested in the link between everyday design and everyday things and all that kind of stuff with digital and so on. There's this book of Donald Norman, The Design of Everyday Things. It's very, very useful for that.
Sounds
It's
awesome.
very much that he just looks at everyday things and why they are designed like they are.
What's the book called?
The Design of Everyday Things.
Cool.
Look at the practice of designing interfaces as the collective effort of UX designers, visual designers, developers, and business stakeholders. There are various different forms of UI design. 3 of the most popular are graphical user interfaces, which you'll be most familiar with and mostly used on your smartphones and your desktop PCs, where you use a mouse or a touchscreen device to interact with the interface. We also have a second favorite is voice user interfaces. So the most recent type of UI design to emerge. This is all about using your voice and speech commands to interact with the machine. And the final one, an oldie, is menu-driven interfaces. And this is very much still used on ATM designs, but it's about providing a menu for the user to interact with, show short, brief menus, which then lead to further menus. When we often hear app design, we often hear the words user experience design and user interface design used interchangeably, which can often lead to various amounts of confusion. While UI design is an important process in your app design, it is merely just a subset of a much wider field of user experience design. And so the best way to sort of imagine the field of user experience design is to imagine an iceberg. And like with an iceberg, 10% of the overall structure of an iceberg is all that is seen to our users. 90% of
mostly used
example
of yeah.
Yeah.
The unseen structure is below the water, which gives the iceberg its structure and its flotation. User experience design can be looked upon in a similar way. So 90% of the effort that goes into creating a great user experience for an app is hidden below the surface. And it's in our usability design, our interaction design, our information architecture, and also in our user research. But what our users do see, similar to an iceberg, is that 10% at the top, that tip, our user interface. Like with our iceberg example, this is why it makes such a good analogy, is that it can be deceiving, this tip, because a good, a visual, pleasurable UI design can deceive our users into thinking that this app's going to provide a great user experience and be able to sort of help us complete our task. Because
you can also misuse this, because if the user thinks it's going to be a great app and it isn't, then users are more forgiven that it isn't working great.
Is it so? Yeah.
Yeah. They are like, well, okay, this may be not working, but the rest looks awesome. So if you fix that, then it's okay. And if your app is like ugly in a sense and hard to understand, and you have to figure out the menus, and then they are finally there, and then it isn't working, then they are completely dumb with it. They are like, screw this.
I
It's
can see the
it
frustration
can
already.
really help you with acceptance.
Yeah.
Users can't see what's beneath the surface. So they don't know that if they click on a button and it's got no desirable action applied to it, or if they can't find the information on the page, and because they can't see what's under the surface, they'll be sunk. And if your users are sunk, so is your product. So building good apps isn't just about creating a great visual appearance. It is what goes on beneath the surface. The layers are deep, and we need to sort of comprehend them if we want to create great apps for our users. So most designers will use principles when designing user interfaces. And the principles I'm going to share with you now, these 4, are no different. And they're inspired by the work of Jakob Nielsen and Ben Schneidman. If you want to find out more, I implore that you go and read up on their work. But getting back to our 4 rules. So our 4 rules, the first one is to place your users in control. And by placing our users in control, we give them that sense of mastery of our user interface. They know what they want to do on it. They know how to find shortcuts. They know how to control it. And our second golden rule is to make it comfortable to use. And by having control and comfort in our user interfaces, we make our users feel less frustrated when using it. So if they do make errors or make misjudgments here and there or mistakes, they can feel comfort that your interface isn't going to make them feel stupid or make it so that they can't unrecover from those errors. The third principle I want to share with you is to reduce cognitive load when designing user interfaces. And so cognitive load refers to the amount of processing power that your users require to use your user interface. And a good UI will require the least amount of cognitive load as possible, and will help your users sort of complete their tasks with ease and efficiency. The 4th golden rule is to make it consistent. And by installing consistency in our apps, we make our apps easier and learnable. With ease and learnable, users can apply prior knowledge they've learned on one page or one section of your app and apply it to other sections of your app, making it much more easy to understand how it functions.
This is also why we are making those templates for a lot of our customers who have more than one Mendix application.
Yeah.
They're going to make templates, design templates for components of Mendix, the library Mendix, the widgets, so that they can use it in all of the Mendix apps they are building. So they are all consistent and everybody can help each other and understand what the buttons or colors or headers are meaning.
Yeah.
That's so useful.
Really helps, yeah.
How it looks, and then your expectations on that. With Make It Consistent, there are 3 types of consistency I want to make you aware of. The first one is visual consistency. And this is just how buttons looks, their colors, their shapes, anything like that. The second consistency I want to make you aware of is functional consistency. And this is the actions that the interactive elements on our page sort of action. And then that they should be the same and consistent. The third consistency you want to be aware of is your users' expectations. And you want to be consistent with what your users expect, because they're not newbies to sort of using websites and apps. They've got prior knowledge. So make it consistent with their prior knowledge. Now that I've shared these 4 golden rules with you, we're going to look how we can apply these to an example app in Mendix. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to introduce you to our app. So our app is a simple task manager app where employees can register new requests when they're being onboarded, so they can put in their information, their details, and then they put in a task inbox where our HR resource manager will pick it up and be able to process it or complete the request. And when we like to do UI design and like to work with designers, we like to work in user journeys, and we like to look at each individual user and their journey through the application separately. So what we're going to look at first is we're going to look at the employee journey and how we can apply our 4 golden rules to that journey of our application. So if we take our first rule of ensuring that our users stay in control and making them in control of our application, we can see that when we go through this simple wizard for our new request, it's very difficult. As I move to the second step, it's quite difficult for our users to know where they are in the journey. So as I move to the second step, it's quite difficult to know how many steps are left for them to complete. Maybe there's another step after this. And it's also very difficult for them to return to the previous step. So what we're going to do in order to create that feeling of control for our users is we're going to add a step wizard to our application. So if we go to our request page, what we're going to do is we're going to drag on one of our building blocks, a step wizard, onto our request page. And we're just going to drag that on now. And you can see it's got a simple structure with 3 steps. I'm going to give each of our step a sort of description. So the first step that we've got, we're going to call our employee detail.
Kind of a mix between how to create UI and how you do it in Mendix.
Yeah.
It is, but that was kind of the thing I was hoping for as well, because otherwise half an hour of the theory behind UI and UX that would be hard for me to understand, to place.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he's doing this now.
And then the second step, which we're going to call our equipment request. And then finally, we're going to have a summary at the end, so that people can very much check what they've inputted and what they've put in place. Very simply like that. And we can further this wizard step by making these clickable elements go to the various steps of our wizard journey. So we can set this one to go to step 1, and then equipment request to go to step 2, for instance, as well.
Is this something that you would still implement often, like
So
a
we can-
wizard kind of thing?
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do, of course. In this example, I would not have used the wizard.
No, me neither.
For only 3 pages, you mean?
And the third page is a summary, and the first and second page are like 8 input fields together, or something like that. It could be easily on one page, and you have your overview, and you can check your form all in one page.
Yeah, but for demo purposes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's the ID that counts then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always maintain that level of control for our users. And we can then run this, and you'll see that by adding that wizard, we've given that more control to our users. Our users can now find out how long they've got, how many steps left to do in their request. They can also navigate between each of the steps. So we can give them that added control to our user interface, and so forth, fulfilling one of our first golden rule. So we can now look at our app, wait for it to
You have to be
reload.
careful not to just fill in your golden rules. They have to have purpose.
Yeah.
That's why we just discussed it, about using the wizard. Yeah, it's now checking off your first golden rule, but the
Does it help?
first golden rule can be checked off way differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah.
And we can see that we've now got a wizard at the top of our page. And as we flick between the steps, we now got a wizard between our page, which tells us that we're on step 1, and that this step we've got 2 more steps to go in our journey. So if we now look to apply our second golden rule, and that is to make it comfortable for our users to use. By making it comfortable, we should look to engineer for errors. And because errors are going to occur in our application. And one error that we can look to occur is the input of an email address. And at the moment, we have some validation on it at the moment, but it only gives us the message that this field is required. And if we just put in any character, we can see that our error message disappears. But if we submitted this request now with the email address as such, this will cause problems down the line for maybe our HR manager when they want to get in contact with our new employee. So error messages should be designed to be informative and give us users prompts on how you can recover from them. And this one's going to be no different. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an error message to our email field. So we're going to go to our validation type here, and we're going to switch it from required to email. And email functionality here is sort of default email functionality. So it'll look.
I never knew that existed.
No, me neither. This is
No, and
No.
this I think this even brings up the correct keyboard on your mobile phone.
Oh, really? Like with the add icon.
the add sign.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Today
nice.
I learned.
Too bad we have to do our validations in a microflow.
Yeah.
You can use both, right?
That's
true.
true. Yeah.
Interesting.
Look for an @ sign in your email, and then the following on from that. And we're going to say, and then we're going to type in a more constructive email response, a validation response to our email address. So we're going to put in, please enter a valid email address. And potentially we can give an example as well. So email address, and we can give an example. So we're going to give an example, chris@me.com. And now we've sort of made it so much easier for our users to recover from, the any errors that occur by adding much more clearer and understandable validation messages. So if we now wait for our app to reload, and then if I try now to click the next button, it will give me that I need to please enter a valid email address here, and it'll give me an example format of what the email address could be. And it just gives you that much more comfort that if I do make an error on this page, I can much easily recover from it, and I can continue to use the app. And then if we look to apply our third rule, so our third rule is around reducing the cognitive load. And new with Mendix, so new with Mendix Studio Pro, in the latest release, which is now Mendix 8.12, we have the ability to set autocomplete fields. And these work by helping you, so previously inputted data that you've put on, for instance, in your browser in Chrome or something like that, we can use that data to help us fill out our forms. So therefore, we can reduce the cognitive load that it puts on our users to recall information.
That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that as well.
I must have missed this in the release notes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to put in, for instance, going to do it for our name, for instance, and it's down the bottom here in our accessibility section. So I can put full name here, and this will look to see what full names we've already put in Mendix in our Chrome browser. And I'm going to do the same for email. And we can just reduce our cognitive load by using this using these autofills.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So if I run this again, you see that I'm able to use previously entered data, personal data that I've entered on other websites as well as in other apps to help me fill out this form. If we just wait for it to reload now. So you'll see as I'm now filling out this form, I have a drop-down option list where I can help me fill out my personal details. So I've got a couple of different ones where I've used my work email address and my personal email address. And if I click that, it will pre-fill the fields on my page, helping to reduce that cognitive load that I have when working with this application. So, and if I finish filling out this form, put in my mobile number and first working day, click next and go to our second step. What we'll notice here is there's a lack of visual consistency. And if we follow our fourth golden rule of making it consistent, this page seems like it doesn't belong to our flow. And it seems like it's a bit different. Does it do the same? Are we still part of the same sort of wizard in order to complete our request? And what we can do there is we can add the wizard steps that we added on the previous page to this in order to make it feel more consistent and apply the same level of control that we had for our previous page to this one as well. So what we'll do is we'll just copy our wizard step from this page and apply it to our second step to provide that visual consistency as well as functional consistency, because we've got in our wizard, we're able to sort of
copy paste.
Yep. Easy does it, right?
Navigate between the steps. So now we've added our wizard, we can to our step 2. We'll just need to change up some classes in order to show the active step. So I'm going to add the class visited here. And then make this step our active step. And click OK. Now, if we run this run this again and test that it works, we'll see that we've added a lot more visual consistency and consistency between the various steps of our request process for our users. And it just makes it that much more easy to use and learnable of our interface. So we can apply what we've learned from our first step 1 to our step 2 and how we can interact with that page. So yeah, we can see we've now got this visual consistency between, if we flip between the steps, you see they look much more visual consistent now, and we can sort of choose our laptop type, our phone type, click next, and we've got our summary as well, which is also visual consistency, so it looks part of our overall request process. We can submit this now and it will appear part of our queue for our HR manager. So you'll see that the new request has appeared in our task queue. So now we're going to look at our second use, that of our HR manager. And if we specifically go to our task view here, and we look at how we can apply our 4 golden rules to this view. So as you can see, when we picked a task, we've gone to the task details view. But what happens if this is the wrong task that we've picked? How do we easily go back to our task inbox or easily know where we've come through from to get to this page? And if we apply our first golden rule, that of keeping our users in control, we can see that we don't have that same, the users can't go back and forth within their actions, and they can't reverse their actions and go back to, and if they've chosen the wrong task, they can't go back to the tasking books and choose the next one that easily. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a breadcrumb to the top of this page so that users can easily navigate between the tasking box and the task. So if we go back to our Studio Pro, and if we go back to our task details page this time.
For small things.
Sorry?
It's a long explanation for small things.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Kind of. But I am more curious about this page than adding the stuff that he did on the first few pages. I think
because this page has a lot more information on it, right? And a lot more different kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the cognitive load, when I see that page that he's going to work on now, it's all coming at me at the same time. I have no clue what I should be looking at. So
let's
go make it, Chris.
Yeah.
The first step in our our HR manager user journey, and we add the building block breadcrumb, and we're going to drag it onto our page. Yeah, and then we're just sort of going to give our link some informative text. So we've called this already our task inbox, but we're going to make it clickable so it does go back to our task inbox. So we're going to make it navigate to our task inbox, as well as we're going to we can also provide a more detailed description to our task here. So we could also provide a caption which includes the task ID or who the task is about as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run this, and we can see now that we've got this sort of clear navigation, so we can easily reverse. If we have made the wrong task choice, we can easily reverse it and go back to our task inbox and make another selection as well. So if we wait for our page to load, you'll see now that a breadcrumb appears, and I can very easily now go, if I have made the wrong task choice, I can very much quickly go to our task inbox, and that keeps our users in control of our interface. We also want to use this application on our mobile phone device. And if we switch to like a mobile view of our task details page as a HR employee, we'll see that it doesn't make us feel the most comfortable. It actually creates discomfort because all the fields are clunked together. For instance, the first working day, I can't read the last 2 characters, and it doesn't feel that comfortable on a mobile phone device if I was to use this app. And we can do responsive design in a couple of various different ways in Mendix. So we can, using the layout grid, we can structure our columns for different device types. So we have the option of setting a column size for both on desktop, tablet, and on phones. So if I'm on the phone device, I'm going to set it to be a 12. So make it have the full width of our page. And I'm going to do the same for this column over here as well. But we can also, with responsive design, we can also filter out and hide irrelevant data, information in sections when we're on a mobile device. So we can also use, for instance, I may not want to see the attachments on my mobile device. So what I can do there is I can use a design property to hide it on mobile phone screen sizes. So I can go to its appearance and then go down to the hide on phone option and toggle it to be yes. So when we are on phone screen sizes, this container will be hidden. So if I run this,
we have a question.
Yeah.
Can you generate a map of your page automatically and create breadcrumbs based on that
I wish.
in a hierarchy kind of way?
That's undoable, right? Because like there's a million options, possible options, how to get where you are right now. So there's no way Mendix could determine where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, they could
Yeah, I
maybe,
think
but
also you have the different roles and different accesses to different pages.
yeah. So breadcrumbs, I always wanted them. Like at the beginning, there was a widget, like in Mendix 4, there was a breadcrumb widget, which worked for some reason. I think it did something with the file structure on in the deployment folder or something like that, but which technical. And these breadcrumbs, they look really awesome, and they can be, but you have to manually set them up for every page yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if your page is reusable, then it can be very, very difficult to determine what flow the user used to get to this page and what breadcrumbs you should show.
Yeah. But this example is also very limited in the sense that you have a task inbox and then a task.
Yeah.
But what if you were to move on from the task to the next?
Yeah. So yeah, for example, if there would be a button on the task screen like next task, which would automatically pick up the next task from your inbox, and how would your breadcrumbs look like? And there's unlimited possibilities, and it's very hard to determine automatically what the breadcrumbs should look like, I think.
Would be a cool feature though.
Would be very cool, and
Yeah.
They can figure that out.
they have done some really smart things already, so nothing is impossible.
this now, you'll see that when we're on a mobile screen sizes, it's now a lot more comfortable because we're using the full width to display our text boxes. We're also hiding the attachment section as well. So we're removing not that helpful information when we're using this on a mobile device. You'll see that we're now using the full screen real estate to show off our text fields. We've also hidden the attachments field, so making much more space on the screen. We've now got a much more comfortable user interface for our users to use on mobile devices. But if we go back to our desktop view, it's very hard for us to sort of distinguish between the request sections, the assigning section. There's no sort of visual clarity between them. There's no way of breaking them up visually. We just got the text box in the fields. We've got the headers up there to know which ones in each section. And if we apply our third rule of reducing cognitive load, we can look to apply like a card or some borders or different backgrounds to our different sections, so to sort of divide them up. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the class card to some of our sections in order to break up our interface, so we can make it a little bit more easier to consume the information that's on the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this section here. I'm going to, in its appearance, I'm going to add the custom class card. I'm also going to add the card class here on our assignee section, as well as to our attachments and to our comments. And this will help us divide up the sections and sort of create a visual differences and appearance that this grouping up here is related to our request, and this grouping over here is relating to our assigning information, just making that much easier to consume the information on the page, reducing down the amount of mental processes and thoughts that we're going through when we're using this page. So reducing down that.
For me, the card is the most used class.
Yeah, that's my go-to class as well.
Yeah.
Load. And finally, just do the same for our comments at the bottom. So I'm now going to run this. And we can now see, also seen the visual differences that adding that card layout has added to our page. We now very easy to see what makes up the request section of our task. We now very easy to see up what is contained in our assignee section, as well as in our attachment and comment sections as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to approve this task. So we're going to approve this task and go back to our task inbox. And if we go back to our task inbox, you'll see open task and another.
To approve does nothing.
Yeah.
Or seems to do nothing. You don't get a notification, doesn't close the page, just.
And you didn't use the breadcrumbs to go back to the task inbox.
Yeah, I noticed it too.
Details.
A tab called completed task. And if we go to our completed task tab, we'll see all the completed tasks that this HR manager has sort of processed. But if we switch between the open task again and the completed task tab, we'll notice some visual differences between the two. And we can't help but question the interface and question these two views and go, does these work in the same way? Where does this sort of completed task view take me to? And this is where we can apply our fourth principle of making our interface consistent. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply the same visual appearance on our open task page to our completed task tab. So if we go back to Studio Pro and we go to our task inbox this time, we're going to copy the view on our open task and copy it across to our completed task view. I'm just going to copy that. And I'm going to go to our task view and I'm going to sort of delete out what we currently have there.
You could also make it a building block.
Yeah.
True.
And I'm going to paste in the same layout that we have on our open task. I'm now going to change up the filter on our list view here so we can see completed tasks. So we go to our data source. I'm going to change up our operator so that we can see the completed tasks that we've completed. So now that we can see I see a list of our completed tasks. And if I run this again, we'll see that we've provided the same sort of visual consistency between the two tabs. And therefore, we've aided in the learnability and the use and the ease of use of our application, because people can apply, our users can apply what they've learned on the previous tab to what they can, to how might the completed tab work. So if I switch between our open task and our completed task, you see that they are visually consistent now. And I therefore know that if I was to click this, I would go to that task detail view page. So we've looked to apply the 4 golden principles to our UI design. But say you want to start creating more apps as well as more user interfaces. And not only for web, but you also want to start creating them for tablet and mobile devices as well. Design scalability doesn't just happen. It isn't easy, and visual consistency doesn't just fall out of thin air. So one way to approach this challenge is to start to create your own reusable UI components. And these can be multiple UI components, they can be widgets, they can be building blocks, they can be larger components such as page templates. And by creating sort of these elements, we can break down our interfaces into reusable components. And we could then use these reusable components to form new user interfaces.
Also where we talked about in the previous video.
Yeah.
Yeah. To build a theme for a customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you build multiple apps, they all work the same way.
And look the same way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or new apps. And we at Mendix believe that we can get you to this stage much more quicker by providing you with Atlas UI. So Atlas UI is a toolbox full of fun tips and tricks, reusable components here and there, which you can use to and apply to both new and existing apps. And you can use them to create your own components, or you can use them to update the existing ones. And then you can share what you've created within your organization and your team. And then other teams can then use that package to create consistent user experiences which are consistent with what you've created. For more information on Atlas UI, you can visit the Atlas UI website. With that, I thank you all for your time. If you have any more further UI questions, please reach out on the community Slack channel.
Atlas UI did really help.
Yeah, it was a big improvement, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
I remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I remember. I think Ronnie, you were one of the first people I knew who had such a experience with the Atlas UI components.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think that was like 3 or 4 years ago now, something like that.
Yeah. And we went to the Mendix office even and talked with Danny Roest and some other design people over there about Atlas UI and how it helps us and what is not easy for us to update the components to our own styling so that they can rework some of the components again. And I think a lot of those feedback are in the newest Atlas UI release from newest. I don't think it's really newest, but it's from 8.6. I think there was a new Atlas UI release also. I don't know the version number of it, but there's a lot of improvements in the Atlas UI and how they build it. What we have discussed back then already. So that's kind of cool.
And there's a new Atlas UI coming, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything, any information about what's in it? What things what are you waiting for? What can they improve?
No, I don't. Sadly, no. I would love to.
Yeah.
But I don't know very much about it. I am excited for the new data kit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's not really Atlas UI, of course, but it's also a component and it's also styled, so it kind of is.
It can be a building block.
Yeah, it's a building block. So
yeah.
But I don't know anything about the new Atlas version within Mendix 9 and what is the difference with Mendix 8. I know the 7 to 8 is a big difference.
Yeah, that was a big change. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a hassle.
Yeah. So I hope that from 8 to 9 it's less of a hassle. So you can more easily upgrade from 8 to 9.
I hope as well. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, me too. I got the feeling from yesterday's videos, also by Danny Roest, that the new Atlas UI is also focusing more on native mobile.
Yeah, true. And creating a consistency on those devices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
It kind of feels like they're bringing everything together into one big,
package.
Yeah, finally, and it takes some work, of course, because they came not from a tool that is specifically for native, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it will take some time, but it's very nice that they are working towards consistency in different applications or different devices, I must say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, the video of the multi-platform experience is kind of nice to see if you are into multi-platform experiences.
That's a great. That's a great little bridge segue because I think we're watching that tomorrow.
Yep, we're watching it tomorrow. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to close off this stream if there's no further questions or remarks from you or the viewers, maybe.
If so, we can also always get back to questions later.
Obviously,
perhaps
yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Of course, these videos will be published on YouTube as well. Hopefully, hopefully tomorrow. So you can rewatch them in your own time and press pause at your own convenience.
Yes.
Although you will have no one to talk to, but that's the downside of not watching live.
Exactly. Yeah. So big thanks to Ronnie for joining us. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise and thoughts on these videos.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, very informative.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully see you next time on a Matter of Life and Dev Live, or we dive into our TripAdvisor lookalike.
Yeah.
Won't take long before we'll be back.
No, we'll be back real soon. Just have to let this sink in for a while, and we'll continue those streams.
Exactly.
Okay, so thanks everyone, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for the last co-streaming stream of Mendix World 2.0. See you then, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.